Hey everybody, it's Paul. Happy New Year if I haven't said so already. Today I wanted to talk about 2017 in review briefly and what I have in store for 2018 for myself. I'm not setting any resolutions or anything like that, but what I have in terms of ideas about where I'd like to go and what I would like to see happen in the next year. And I think it's important to think about that stuff, even though I try to stay in the present all the time. So let's start with 2017. So at the beginning of last year, my friends and I, a lot of us, were pretty angry. There is a lot going on in the world now. There was a lot going on then. And if you're of a certain disposition, to see the, structure of what we were used to crumble in front of us, and rights started to be taken away, and the rise of hate groups, and back to feeling like we may be in a nuclear war at some point, like we felt in the 80s when Reagan was president. There's a lot to think about in there. But you can only stay angry and outraged for so long, and I hit my breaking point pretty early in the year, around April or so. I realized that what I was projecting outward was a product of all the things I was taking in and then creating feelings around. So, as we've talked about before, problems are a choice. Joy is a choice. Viewing something as a problem is a choice. There's only reality and our reaction to it. There's those two things, right? And I realized that there was this reality, but my reaction to it was way out of balance, and it didn't help anything. It didn't change anything. It didn't change, I wasn't being the change I wanted to see in the world, as Gandhi said, right? I think a lot of people think that means that you must go out and do something external of yourself in order to change the world, and then that'll be a good thing, right? But I think what it actually means is that you need to do the internal work and realize that we are all cut from the same cloth, and as Thich Nhat Hanh says, we have the seeds of compassion and love and generosity in our storehouse of our mind, and we also have the seeds of hatred and greed and all of those things in our minds, and it all depends on what seeds you water as to what you're going to grow, and that may seem like a hokey gardening analogy in a little bit, but it helps me a lot because it levels the playing field in a way where if you start to think that you're better than somebody because you hold a certain belief, like if you believe in fairness and social justice and all those other things, if you think that you only have the potential for those things in your mind, you're mistaken. Obviously, we all have the potential to be saints and serial killers. We have everything is contained therein, and sometimes different seeds get watered, and we all water all of the seeds somewhat. There's nobody who doesn't water some of the seeds of greed and hatred and racism and sexism and all those things in their mind. I don't think anybody's exempt from that. It's just that most of us try to water those seeds of love and generosity and kindness more than we water the negative ones right there, and we may not even know we're watering the negative ones so much. But this is the important thing that turned me around a little bit, is to realize that, all the people out there that I was thinking are doing these horrible things, and they may be doing horrible things, but I'm not that different from those people. It's just those people water different seeds in their mind than I'm interested in watering, right? So if I actually want to affect change in the world, what I need to do is water those seeds of love and generosity and kindness all the time. I need to focus my gardening attention on those seeds and let the other ones wither as much as I can, right? But always know that they're there, and they could be watered even without me knowing it. I might pay attention to them, in my subconscious. That's not subconscious, but I might consciously pay attention to them at some point, unintentionally, and there comes this growth there. I have a little bit of greed, I have a little bit of hatred, I have a little bit of I'm better than the other person kind of thing growing over there. And if those are competing all the time, I don't think a lot gets done in the world. So what I'm trying to do is water this side of the garden, let that side wither as much as possible. And the change I've seen is sort of remarkable, right? I'm a lot less angry than I used to be, and I'm a lot less outraged on a daily basis. So already my blood pressure is much lower. I'm a much happier person. And what I project outward into the world is a much happier person, much more joyful, much more loving, kind, generous than I was before. Because when you get caught up in those negative seeds, it's like weeds over there. When you get caught up in the high weeds, it's really hard to be any of those things because you're very preoccupied with what you want to happen, with what you think should happen, with what is right, underlined, all capitals, right, in your mind. What you think is right is what's right, and that's what you want for the world, and you get very caught up in that thing. There's not a lot of flexibility within that at all. And in this other way, where you're watering kindness and equanimity and generosity and love over here, there's much more leeway in that. There's an open space in there where you can consider many more things coming in, and you can start to have compassion even for the people that you were once very angry at, or you can begin to at least understand where their where their behavior starts to come from. It's not that it's any better than you thought it was before, but if you can understand it, and you can understand that you're just one step away from that because we all have the same seeds in our storehouse, then you can become much more compassionate and loving toward everyone, even the people in the world that you think are causing the problems. So once I started doing that, then the world, not only did it look different to me, but I began to project something into the world that was completely different than I had before. Without that anger and that outrage that I was carrying around every day, everything opened up. I began meeting many more people. I did that intentionally, but also just much more started coming my way. Maybe it was already there and I didn't notice it. Maybe it wasn't there before, and once I opened up, the world just poured in. Whatever it was, it's a much better situation than being angry and outraged and high blood pressure 24/7 and the world, that kind of thing. That's not to say that we don't have our problems or we don't have our challenges. We certainly do have them, and the point is not to pay less attention to those challenges. The point is to project something into the world that is the change that you want to see. So if you have a chance to water those good seeds over here and then project them out into the world and show loving kindness to another being, whether that's a person or a child, an animal, whatever that is, or do something that actually does cause a positive change in the world, and pass that on to a person so they feel that same way. They can say, wow, I had that interaction with that person, and that was sort of magical, or that was great, or that was really kind, any of those things, then they're going to take that with them wherever they go. And that's going to encourage them to be that way as well, and water those seeds in their mind as well. Because there's an awful lot of people who are walking around angry and have closed themselves off and have armored themselves, have closed their hearts and put a building over, put armor, metal over it, not accessible to anybody else. The point for me in 2018 is to be more and more accessible like that, is to water the seeds on the good side of the garden, open the heart, be more and more accessible to everybody, be a space for things to happen in that people need to happen, right? And that being the change I want to see in the world, that's what it means to me, and that's my wish for 2018. Something to think about. Maybe that's something you want to consider too. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.